Hello, my name is Zita Harkaran. This is Sadhana and Books podcast, and I am here today with Hari Kaur Khalsa. It's a huge privilege for me to have Hari Kaur here because she is my first teacher and actually the one teacher that I studied with for many, many years. Level 1, level 2, and many other trainings. And she is, of course, Kundalini yoga teacher, Qigong teacher. She has been chosen as top 10 yoga influencer in the West by Yoga Journal. She is also an author of two books, Woman's Book of Yoga, Embracing Our Natural Life Cycles, which is very beautiful for women, that starts from early childhood almost and goes through all phases of woman's life, right?
Yeah.
Until menopause. And then Woman's Book of Meditation, the power of the peaceful mind and what that can create for you in your life. She's also certified yoga therapist. And of course, she has a yoga studio, one in a city called Hari NYC, and also one online, also Hari NYC. So you can catch her online or in person in New York City. So welcome, Hari. So
Thank
nice
you
to
so
have
much.
you here. How are
Thank you
you
so
doing
much,
today?
Zita Harkaran. I am so happy that you invited me. And anytime I get the opportunity to spend time with Zita, it's just wonderful. She's incredibly inspiring yogi and teacher.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, we inspire one another. We need one another. That's why I wanted to have these conversations so that I can kind of like know, how are you doing? How are you thinking about spirituality? What's supporting you, and what can we learn from you so that we feel supported as well? So let's start from like the beginning. What brought you to Kundalini Yoga? And then why did you decide to dedicate your life and all your time basically to teaching Kundalini Yoga?
Thank you for asking me that. I think that as we grow, that answer actually changes. So at this moment, I like saying in my limited awareness, because I think more will get revealed to me over time, that since I was a child, I was very spiritual. I became religious and I was a seeker. And since I was very young, and I consider my first spiritual teacher to be my grandfather.
Mhm.
And he was just wonderful. I grew up, we were Jewish. And so I spent time at the synagogue chanting and singing and watching him move. And he was the kindest, sweetest, most beautiful person, patient, and just like an oasis of love for me. And so I watched what he did. When someone's like that, you kind of imitate them. So I'll never forget the day when I ended up knowing enough Hebrew and enough to get lost in my prayer, right? I knew the stuff enough to get lost in it, where one day when he came into the synagogue, he sat behind me. And that was really a big deal because he was, watching me, and it was really a very beautiful time. And many experiences when I was young that were religious and spiritual. And as I started seeking as I was older, I looked beyond my religion because I couldn't find many teachers. And when I came to Kundalini Yoga, the first class was a great synthesis of like this singing and chanting that I was very familiar with. So for me, that came like very easily. Where I know that for many people, it's something really different. For me, it came very easily. And when I was actually moving my body, which I used to do a little bit in the synagogue, where you actually rock or move like this while you chant. But this was even more movement. Uh, it it just spoke to me very deeply. So
Mm-hmm.
that's really what spoke to me, was the synthesis of movement, rhythm,
Mm-hmm.
and um, the spirit. You know, there was one other thing that, and now that comes to talk of it, when I was a teenager, one of my great heroes was Chick Corea. He was a jazz musician, and so music always spoke to me. So I think the actual practice of Kundalini as it was brought here was more kind of open feeling, like improvisation. Do you know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? The kind of movement that you'd have like um, a minute or two within an exercise to kind of
Mm-hmm.
be rhythmic. And that felt like playing an instrument to me. So it was very, very musical practice. And that
Mm-hmm.
really spoke to me because music always uplifts me. And I married a jazz musician.
Yes,
And
yes.
so,
Been married for a long time now. Yes.
yeah, over 30 years we've been together.
Mhm. Yeah.
So that's what brought me to it. That first class was
Mm-hmm.
very inspiring. And it literally wasn't the first yoga class I'd done. I'd done some other forms of yoga that didn't really inspire me so much.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something truly magical about Kundalini yoga, that synthesis of movement and rhythm and meditation together. It's very calming, and I don't know, somehow it transports you into different time and place.
Yeah, it gives that kind of that recipe, that synthesis, that recipe brings you to these states of experience that we call God, or we call um, elevated consciousness, or
Mm.
you may even have different brain states that you can call them. But you can just, and as you grow, your experiences do shift and become deeper over time. And it's not like you have an experience and that's it. It just
Mm.
keeps evolving just as we evolve. It's really been fantastic for me.
Yeah, there's
I
no
didn't,
end to this. Yeah, it's
no,
not like, oh, one day you will be like, oh, I know. It's like, no, we are always just opening the doors, new doors. But
yeah.
what what made you then decide that, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This I'm going to help others to feel in this way, to discover these states, and then become the teacher that you are and dedicate your full time to it.
You asked me that question, and it wasn't a conscious decision.
Mm.
Um, I did have a near-death experience right before I met Kundalini Yoga. So I just started doing it.
Mhm.
And back then, there were not a lot of yoga at all. There were no yoga mats. There was no yoga business really. And I didn't live where there were a lot of classes. There was an ashram, but it was, about an hour away. So it wasn't like I was there all the time. My husband is a jazz musician. I dress in white. He dresses in black. It wasn't, I didn't have any attachment to the thing of it. It just, something in me. I really am. It wasn't a conscious decision to do it, because
Mhm.
certainly I couldn't have made that decision because it wasn't popular at that time
Mhm.
at all. So, nobody was going to be a yoga teacher.
Mhm.
That
Impulsive.
wasn't there. Like now,
Mhm.
it's something you can become. Back then, I just went into people's basements and went into some recreational programs, and we taught yoga, and I just enjoyed it.
Mhm.
And it grew, I think, within me, as well as in the culture at that time. And I feel so fortunate to have, and I just want to inspire all of you to not ever get discouraged, because you know there is always a place to go with your practice, always. And if you can keep the curiosity despite all the hype and all the misunderstandings, if you just keep your practice, I think you'll find that it's as extraordinary as it always has been.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point, because even in past few years we have seen a lot of changes. Even if we just look at pandemic, right? Like that completely shifted so many personal practices and yoga studios. And you've seen it even more when there wasn't yoga as like the popular thing. It wasn't in magazines. It wasn't, the meditations were not studied by scientists, and people did not talk about mindfulness.
My book was written in 2002, my first book. It
Wow.
was the first book written by a yogi that I know of in my awareness. That is written by a yogi and a doctor collaborating.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Wow, yeah. So you were a pioneer of this.
Yeah, and most people, including my family, thought I was a little, strange. And yet, as it grew, they all started like going like, "Wow, did you predict this?" And I said, "No, I just love it." And I ended up. My father really loved it, and my
Mm-hmm,
mother-in-law, who's 90
mm-hmm,
now, really has practiced yoga and loves it. And I went from the real strange one to like the happy one, which is
mm-hmm.
really interesting.
Yeah, that's a really nice shift. I think there is still this attachment, this kind of like, oh, yoga teachers are strange, especially if they wear turbans.
Mm.
um, but then now there is like a little bit more stigma to it. There are certain expectations how you should be. But I like how you said that this was kind of like, you didn't choose it consciously, this path. I think these are some of the best decisions, right? We
Yeah.
just kind of go with the flow and do what we like, do what fulfills us.
And
And
still work, like I worked until I worked a regular job, and I didn't resent it, and I loved it, and it was fine. And uh, there's no rush for anything. And that would be the one thing I would tell people I'm now 66. And I would say, don't rush, practice. That'll bring you everything.
mm-hmm.
It'll bring you everything you need,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah, so since you're talking about practice, um, what are some of your favorite practices, or how would you recommend people to practice?
Practice every day. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't practice, learn from that, but practice a little something. It doesn't have to be big. And um,
Yeah.
I think I got a little bit in trouble because a while ago I was in a book and I said, no, practice for hours. And, that's just because that's something I'm just so curious. And so
Yeah.
at the beginning, we did that because we were very curious.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, because
I,
it's
I was very curious, and I'm a real nerd, and I like researching it, my own experience. So the two Kundalini practices that I really like is called the morning long chant.
mm-hmm.
Uh, um, Ek Ong Kaur, the creator and the creation are one.
Yeah, let's talk
Satanam,
about it. It's beautiful. Yes.
Siri Waheguru. And you do it in the 2.5 breath cycle for 2.5 hours. But even if I do it for a short time, I really love that. And it's become a good friend. And when you ask me what I love, I would say I love what I've practiced. And so, whatever you practice, chances are you will fall in love with it because you develop a relationship if you give yourself a chance. And I like Sakriya.
Mm-hmm. So these are the two. Yeah. So
And for the
why?
exercises, I love all the Kriyas because I find that the exercises in Kundalini Yoga give me vitality as I age. And no matter what is going on with my body, I had a broken foot, I am a cancer survivor, no matter what has happened, I've been able to practice. And I've been able to access vitality through the practice. And that's really amazing to me. And I feel it keeps that vitality, that youthful kind of, that feeling of vitality in me. So any of the Kriyas I like, just pull one out and just roll around the floor and do the best you can.
Yeah. You're very good at teaching all the Kriyas. It's like anytime I would come to class, I would be tired after the day of work or whatever. And I was like, oh, I can't do this. But somehow, I don't know how, I ended up doing all these powerful exercises, even though I thought I was drained. So yeah, it creates this space of like relaxation, and then, oh, then you can do anything once you're relaxed, I guess.
That's true, Zita. You can go anywhere you want from a point of relaxation.
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
But let's talk about, I do want to talk about a long Ek Ong Kaar, the morning, a long morning call,
Yeah.
and Sat Kriya. Like how did the morning call feel for you? Let's even, if someone doesn't know what it is, maybe let's go through the mantra and explain a little bit how it is. Maybe people will want to practice it. And then for how long would you recommend to practice that?
Oh, okay. So the mantra is in a language like Gurmukhi, and it is Gurmukhi. It's a language like Sanskrit. It's in that same vein. And the mantra is Ek Ong, O-N-G. Ek is like I-K, like between I-K and E-K. Ong, O-N-G, that N-G, nasal. Kaur, K-A-R, like car. And the second, we do that in a long form. So you take a deep breath in and you chant Ek and then Ong Kaur, and they're equal, and it's on the exhalation. And so you do the same thing with the next three words, which is Sat and Nam. Sat is truth, Nam is name, and then Siri, S-I-R-I, which is great, is that experience, that truth, that the creator and creation are one, Ek Ong Kaar. Satanam, Siri, and then the last part, Wa, Hey Guru. It's another name for God in Gurmukhi, and it also means, like when I was at the Golden Temple in India, this was my best experience of that mantra. A woman was sitting there, and that's the experience. That dog is experiencing Waheguru right now. It's a woman was sitting there, and she was going, wow, 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 like this absorption in Wah. And so Wah is this, expansive quality, and Hey Guru is here's the Guru. The Guru, the wisdom is right here now with us. So you do it in 2.5 breaths. And this mantra, you can do any way you want. You can chant it in a monotone. You can do anything you want with it. You can make up your own melody if you'd like. And you can chant it in this format. I like this format because it slows your breath, and it's a real linking of your breath, which is so powerful for your health and mind and nervous system and gland. It's just anything that goes breath and sound together, to me, is what we call Laya Yoga, and it's my love. Laya Yoga means the linking of sound and breath. And so you create a rhythm with your sound and your breath. It makes it easier to have a longer breath, which gives you this expansive mental state. I like this experience. So should I chant it?
Yeah,
Once?
let's do once, yeah, so we know how it sounds.
So you take a deep breath. I'll do it. You'll hear me take a deep breath, chant Ek Ong Kaar. Another, and you're chanting, whenever you're chanting, you're exhaling. So you're chanting on the exhalation. And then you take another deep breath. That's the second. Chant Sat Nam. And at the very end, Siri. And then you take a half breath and chant Waheguru. It moves up the spine through the crown. That's one of the kind of ways that that sound moves. So let me just take a moment. Draw myself in, and then we touch first fingers to the thumb. And so we have a mudra, and you can rest them on your knees and the eyes closed. You can lightly put your eyes at your brow point. That means the eyes close and go gently upward towards Ajna chakra, third eye. Place sensitive to light. And so I'll just chant it for you, and you can listen and let it move upwards. So when I say Waheguru, the Guru goes way out into the space around you. I'll inhale. Ek Ong Kaar. Sat Nam. City. Wah. Hey Guru. And relax.
I think even just one repetition already gave us a little taste, right? What this meditation always reminds me of, it's like a little massage for the subtle body, or the massage for the chakras, or like the inner world. Everything gets kind of fulfilled and does not feel empty or striving for something. It's like, I love it.
Really relaxing. And you can just, the key to chanting is where you put the chant. You imagine it in the central channel, and then you put some energy toward it. And then the next thing is you listen to your own voice. And that is so nice. If you can fall in love with your own voice, that's really a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, and that voice is chanting something so beautiful. So that's how you empower the mantra to be healing for you. And I find that to be in the early morning hours just beautiful. And some of my, high points of meditation have happened during my 40-day practices of that mantra. I remember the whole staff at my yoga studio practiced 40 days, 2.5 hours in the morning. And we would basically sleep in the afternoons and have nap time, and everything somehow got done. It was really, and to start, I don't really recommend 2.5 hours. Get to learn the chant, and unless you're as curious as me and you want to give it a try, it's fine. But
there are some people. Actually, I had a coworker, a friend, and I think the first Kundalini class she went to was the 2.5 hours of long Ek Ong Kaar during the sadhana in Yogi Bhajan's birthday that we used to celebrate like that.
Yeah.
And she had a great time. She never done it before, but somehow, yeah.
Yes, that's how it used to be too. We just were curious what's going to happen, and not so judgmental of each individual experience. Because just like your mood, things change over time.
Yeah.
So whatever practice you choose is going to have its ups and downs. Although
Yeah.
I just don't take any one practice session too seriously at all.
Yeah. And you mentioned that idea already of like, let's see what happens, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I like that. Like, let's experiment with the body a little bit and see what effect. You don't even have to know um, what someone said about it, or try it out
Yeah.
yourself.
Imagine having practiced when nobody had said anything about it. That's what we were, we didn't have this
Mm-hmm.
information. So it was practicing, then getting together with your friends and
Mm-hmm.
saying, what was that? Wow.
Mm-hmm.
What was your experience? And to me, all meditations really lead to the same place.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
each individual person processes what they got to go through and what
Mm-hmm.
they need to learn about themselves. And the same place, you get to the same place of love. And
Mm-hmm.
that's really what it is for me. And that's how I saw the yoga. It was a way, without becoming a rabbi or some kind of, religious thing. It was a way I could share love and
Mm-hmm.
my amazement and awe of life without having to really have such a belief system, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or belong to some kind of
Right. So that's what I was, a child of the 60s. So we were expanding a lot. And so, it was like, wow, I don't have to be in one religion. I don't have to be in one belief system. So now, be careful. Don't limit your yogi. No matter what someone tells you it is, know that it's, know your yamas and niyamas, have your ethical base, and then fly.
mm-hmm.
You must have that ethical base. Without that, it doesn't work, as you can see from yoga. So keep that ethical base, and then you can really fly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, it's true. And but even what's better is that experience of love and union with others and union with nature, and that feeling of, that's what we all long for at the end of the day, right?
And nothing touches it. Nothing. Like all the pain in the world and all the stress in the world, once you really awaken that, can never be taken away.
Mm-hmm.
You can be in a bad mood and you can be actually miserable and angry as a volcano and make tons of mistakes, and it's still there.
Mm. What do you mean it's still there? The
The love is still
experience?
there, and
Oh,
it's
right.
still
Yes. Yes.
managing you. It's like a couple, a marriage, a good marriage. Like over time, my husband and I will still start fighting or something, but we can't face each other when we fight because we're laughing. Because no, I'm really attached, and we're really just laughing because we know it's the same fight we've always had. Nothing's, and we just have to let some energy out, so it's not really a fight, it's just funny. And so he goes, turn around. I said, no, no. Because once I turn around, I can't be attached to my my
The anger.
position because we just start laughing at each other. So it's like that, like no matter what happens in life and the things that make you so upset that whatever it is that's there, somehow, if you nourish that love, it just wins.
Yeah, it's stronger than anything else that
Oh,
can.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Let's. I do want to get to Satkriya, but I want to know how else would you recommend to nourish that love? Whether it's in relationship, I think it's something interesting, or just in life in general, in your everyday life.
I would say the yamas and niyamas are a good place to start. Um, just giving your life a context. Like today, my life is about truth. What does that really mean to me? What does that mean to me? To really get to know what's going on in there. Today, my life is about non-harming, ahimsa. What does that really mean to me? to really go personally into that. And the way you do it is just in the morning, you ask yourself, what is this about? You contemplate. And so, the yamas and niyamas have things like truth or discipline or like inspiration to practice, zeal, self-study. Why do self-study? Well, ask yourself before you just take on a practice, like, where are you going with this? Actually sit with yourself and do some of those contemplations. And that really nourishes you getting to the seed of what values are important to you. Mm-hmm. And whether it be generosity or kindness or compassion or love or truthfulness or authenticity. And once that connection's made, like, wow, that's my dharma, that's my thing in the world, that will open up the love so much. Mm-hmm. So I would spend the time with the yamas and niyamas and yourself knowledge and realization for yourself. Not like, don't get all narcissistic with it. It's just sitting and asking yourself these questions. And the goal is for you to work through the things that prevent you, for you to work through the things that prevent you from getting there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I feel like that's the work that we actually end up doing in meditation, or then even in, maybe not in actual meditation, but in these like little meditative states we get during the day, right? Like maybe having tea or walking or looking at something, where you get to ask yourself these questions.
Yeah. And you begin to elevate, you begin to speak to the higher consciousness, and you let it have a voice. There's a lot of inner critic, there's a lot of other voices in your head. So the contemplation is just, gives you a chance for your higher consciousness to have a voice as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But the meditation, sorry to bring it up there again, is that it helps you to find this contemplative state easier.
Yes, actually, that's very good. Meditation, especially in Kundalini yoga, many of the meditations are really concentration exercises. They're to get you to the point so you can meditate. If you look at the, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi, if you look at those kind of ways of meditation, the parts and the stages of meditation, Kundalini meditations often are like preparatory to full absorption. Mm-hmm. And then some are full absorption meditations. But what was so brilliant about it is it really builds tremendous focus and resilience and endurance to meditate. Mm-hmm. And so when you get that gives yourself the chance for the brain states to really change. Mm-hmm. Gives you the patience and the strength of the nervous system to continue. So that's where I think the Kundalini style of meditating is very effective. Mm-hmm. Some are very simply concentration exercises, and then they're they develop a very powerful focus. And right now, if I think of what might be important to people, is to reclaim our focus, reclaim our attention. Like, take it back so you can go to sleep when you want to go to sleep. Take it back. Get comfortable with yourself. And these meditations are entertaining enough and hard enough so that you can actually reclaim it without sitting forever wondering and going through a lot of frustration. It actually works quite effectively and efficiently for the modern mind that we're confronting right now. Mm-hmm. And I would say it's tremendous antidote to difficulty with focus and attention.
Yeah, because this is a huge problem right now, and it's going to be even bigger, right? Because of all the distractions we have. And it's not, we shouldn't feel guilty for having all these things, but we need to know how to handle it, that we do need to come back to ourselves and to, what did you say? Reclaim our own perception.
And our attention, reclaim our attention. I read a wonderful article in, I believe it was the New York Times. And it was about, you know, how people have portfolios and financial portfolios or art portfolios, or that you would have a time portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
Because what do we spend more than anything? Time.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe this year have a time portfolio. How would you like to spend your time? Really? And then you have your portfolio, you know, you have how you spend your money and how you spend, you know, have your art and everything. But this is how I want to reclaim my attention. And this is where I want to put my time. And, you know, my husband is a master of it. And I just respect him so much. He's a renowned, world-renowned jazz musician, and he stays up all night. In the quiet of the night, he'll practice 3 or 4 or 5 hours, and he'll do his yoga and meditation he'll sleep during the day. But the idea is nothing will stop that practice. You know.
Yeah. So. Let's then try talk about the different kind of practice, the Sat Kriya, which is, you know, it's much more energizing. It's almost like an aerobic exercise. What makes it one of the most important for you?
Well, I learned early on it was considered the foundation of Kundalini yoga, and I'm very, my mind works in ways that if it's something is foundational, then I would like to learn it. And like I practice simple things over and over, and that's what opens the most doors. So you know, something like the spinal flex, you know, practice the spinal flex for 5 minutes a day. This exercise we do a lot in Kundalini, where you flex the spine like this. 5 minutes.
Yeah, for those who can see, it's just moving your belly forward and back as you sit, and you can do it sitting in a chair, you can do it sitting on a floor.
You create like a half moon going forward and back with your lower spine, and you rock forward on your sitting bones into the back of the sitting bones, keeping your shoulders aligned over your hips. And this is opening and exercising your lumbar spine. And it's actually expanding what naturally happens when you breathe. So it's the most natural thing. This happens very subtly when you inhale and exhale. This is what's happening down there. So this opens up and massages. This part of the body gets very tight with stress. And just that one thing, if you practice simple things, the foundation everything else is yours. You know, then you can pick what you want. Sat Kriya to me is foundational because...
Okay, before we get to Sat Kriya, I do want to talk a little bit more about this, about this spinal flex, because I would like for everyone to practice this every day for 5 minutes, like you said, even right now.
It's so true, and it combines exactly what I said, the synchronized breath, mantra, mind, listening, and movement. So in this one exercise, I have a student, I've been teaching this, and we do it for 11 minutes every time we get together. And people, isn't it a warm up? No, spinal flex is actually a Kriya. It's a completed Kriya. It's a complete exercise that handles everything. So really, the spinal flex is beautiful, and I hope you can show your listeners that. It's very true, Zita.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we mentioned, it's the inhaling as you move forward and exhaling as you go back.
Little sniff in as you come forward, sniff out as you go back through the nose, like a rocking motion. Forward and back, you close your eyes, and the first thing to do is just listen to your breath. Listen for the sound. That's the first mantra, is the sound of your breath. So you listen for the sound and listen so carefully. I love this metaphor, as if your breath is your best friend. And you ever be in a car following your best friend, and you don't want to lose the person in front of you? Stay close to your breath. Don't lose it. It's your best friend. And so you just listen to that breath and keep your mind close to it. Keep your mind close to that breath. Put your mind in the lower spine and just move at a pace that's not too slow and not too fast. It's about 8 flexes every 10 seconds. And the rhythm makes a difference. So you want it not too slow, not too fast to go to either extreme. You want it in the middle, because we're trying to get to our heartbeat. Once we get to the heartbeat, then immediately gratitude comes. You realize you're alive, and that stimulates gratitude in the higher consciousness.
Yeah.
So it's the simplest thing leads to the deepest experiences, really.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned there is a mantra too, because there is a mantra in there, which you can do mentally.
Yes, the mantra Sat as you come forward, and Nam as you go back, Nam. And you mentally repeat it with the breath.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And if you're from a different tradition, you could use a mantra that serves you, because sacred words have power.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Yeah. You can choose your own words. The 2 words only.
Yeah, and when I teach people from Jewish tradition, they often say Hashem, Ha and then Shem, which is another name like Satnam, a name for, it's the sacred name. So people do use different mantras, but you want it, like I prefer that to 1 and 2, because I think it adds something, valuable, some kind of mantra.
Yeah, because vibrations do have effect on our mind and on our bodies as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so are we ready for Sat Kriya? Can we get
Sat
to
Kriya. So Sat Kriya is a form of Laya yoga, just like Ek Ong Kaar, that we linked the breath with the sound. So Sat Kriya links the breath with the sound in such a powerful way that you don't really have to pay attention to the breath. The breath is woven in to the sound. So when you say Sat, you pull in the navel point around your belly button. So it's contraindicated if you're pregnant when you're doing, or if you're on your cycle, because you're lifting that belly so much, and we want to honor the baby developing and the downward flow of energy, and you're on your cycle. So otherwise, Sat Kriya, as you take, which is interesting because I've been practicing Sat Kriya for many years, and I couldn't really do 40 days until I was in menopause. Because so it's interesting. So you can't really be too hard on yourself, right? You can't, because and I've just mastered the meditation, even doing it that way, without even being able to go the full 40 days. So when you say Sat, your lower belly's like a swing, and it comes in and up. So it's like Sut, like S-U-T, Sut. And then the breath will sneak in. It'll just sneak right in, and then Nam, it swings out. So it sounds like this: Sut, Nam, Sut, Nam, Sut, Nam, Sut, Nam, swinging in, Sut, out, Nam, Sut, Nam, Sut, Nam. And you don't want to also go too slow or too fast. And so it's about 8 repetitions, 8 to every 10 seconds. And there's a few different arm postures that you can do, but the traditional one is palms are together over your head with the arms extended, or you can interlace your fingers and the index finger can be pointing up. And that's the traditional. And then you stretch the arms up over your head and you're sitting on your heels. So you really have this like rocket ship. So I've nicknamed it the rocket ship. So it's kind of like this, you create this powerful posture, because sitting in rock pose, you can use a block or even in a chair. The idea is when you create this, and it's like you've got booster rockets here, and you really are freeing up a lot of energy there by exercising. There's a major artery there. It's just digestion. It helps you eliminate. It helps you clear the air and clear your mind. So really, the way they talk about the movement of energy is from the belly to the brow. That's really what's happening. It's going between the navel point, which is like the dantian, to the brow. This is the navel point. Dantian is where energy is stored for you, and the brow point is where you can project, light into the world.
Yeah. So you said it frees up a lot of energy from like the belly or
Right.
the energy from your lower chakras, or
Right. So what we mean by that is when when you're having difficulty with digestion, or when you've had sexual trauma, or you're going through like menopause, or trying to get pregnant, or a male is having erectile dysfunction, or is not in a relationship and struggling with sexuality not being expressed. There's a lot, and sexual energy is a very powerful part of our practice. And this Kriya is really good for this. It's really good for saying hello to this area. I'm here for you. I want to help. I want to nourish you by letting the muscles move, letting the nerves get attention. And also the kidneys are tied in there, and the kidneys are, a basis interacting with the reproductive and sexual organs for vitality. This is very, very foundational in Kundalini Yoga, how we relate to our sexual energy. And
yeah, because Kundalini Yoga is thought of as the energy of the sexual kind, almost as not the sexual kind, of the second chakra, right? It says that it is connected with the second chakra a lot, is the main, but it can be and often is imbalanced.
Well, how can it not be for just about everyone? Because it's so difficult to talk about, and we're still at a very low point where people worship youth and how you look, and all kinds of things get very tied up for young people especially. And we have a ways to go to be able to talk about this. And I've been a mentor for many young women, and I've had the opportunity to talk to them about this, and it's very helpful to them to have a place to talk about it. And the practices of all yoga leads to what they call raising the Kundalini, and that means developing a kind, compassionate way to heal, and a kind and compassionate way to understand our creative force of energy. And really, Qigong starts with that, with understanding it. Really, pretty much, they talk about it a lot, but they have difficulty. You know, all the teachers have difficulty in this culture. And so,
Yeah, because on one hand, it's in our culture, this second chakra energy is like all everywhere, right? You see it on all the ads, in all the TV, in songs, and it's everywhere. But on the other hand, it's there is kind of restrictions around it and secrecy around it, and it's manipulated in some ways that you can only express in certain way the second chakra energy, not in others, and so it's dysfunctional. It becomes dysfunctional in that way.
right. And I think understanding the dark side and the shadow side will really help people navigate life more easily, you know, for themselves and keep themselves, you know, like help to keep us safe and help to keep our privacy and our intimacy sacred. And Sat Kriya really does help you keep these areas of the body healthy by giving them attention, circulation. The pulsing of the navel point really loosens up and helps your digestion, your elimination, your reproductive organs, and it gives you access to that part of your body, and that's a powerful part. There was a saying once that people who practice Kundalini or possibly all forms of yoga, they're okay they're fine from the diaphragm up. You know, they're awakened already. They have a seeking nature. Their heart is open. They want to be in the space of love. And so really that's where all the work needs to be done. So they can reside in the space of love. And it said that the goddess in the lower chakras is Kali, who is really fierce and helping you to, you know, clear the way from any of the struggles you've had. And that when the goddess at the heart center is clothed in white, sitting on a white lotus and relaxed. And so, but we have to, you know, and it's not like you get there, like we said at the beginning of our conversation, not like you get there and that's it, because new things happen in life. So Kali is very useful, and Kali is definitely there to help us, you know, that fierceness to get to be with ourselves and our fears, right? And work with them. And then to find, wow, I've gained some self-knowledge for myself.
Yeah, and not be afraid of that Kali. She's part of us like everything else.
Well, yeah, and sometimes you get really afraid. You just have to say, whoa. So it's nice to know that's where you have friends, therapists, spiritual guides, whatever works for you, teachers that can help guide you through those moments.
Okay, so yeah, we got Sat Kriya, we got spinal flexes, and we got morning call, long Ek Ong Kaar. Truly foundational practices that I feel like people practice them and then they forget them because they think they're too foundational, too basic. But it's like you said, if you have the basics, you have done everything else.
Yeah, that's why they're basics. They have everything within them. They're the seed of everything that comes out. So if you practice the basics, you're actually got the seed that's got everything in it.
Yes, you got the seed. So let's move on a little bit to away from Kundalini yoga. What other, you mentioned Qigong, what other practices or what maybe arts or sciences or people maybe that inspire you?
Well, my husband really inspires me because I watch his discipline with music. And he's really shows you what I can watch what practice does. And what I love about music is, you know, it's easy to quote people on social media or to say, get rid of your fears or this or that. but to play music, you can tell if it's good or not. You know, it's very clear.
Yes, yes,
Like,
yes.
you cannot fool anyone. And I really respect that. It's really been an amazing journey with him all these years. Um, if you were to see here, I have my piano and my new Moog synthesizer.
Mm.
I'm starting to play again and
Yeah,
create
yeah.
music. Yeah.
Oh.
And so music is like my foundation of what I love. And I love all creative arts. My my studio, the descriptive line was dedicated to the expression of the creative spirit.
Yes.
So, of course, music, and I've been a writer for many, many years. So, writing of all kinds, and I read fiction and poetry and all kinds of, I'm a reader, active reader.
Yeah.
Um,
Any book that you would like to share that
well,
inspired you lately, or maybe long time ago, but you're still thinking about it?
oh yeah, oh yeah, you know. Whew. Well, a long time ago, one of my first basic awakenings happened around a book called The 13 Petaled Rose, but it is around the Jewish or Old Testament kind of thing about angels and how things work. But it's a Kabbalistic basic text, The
Oh, yeah.
13 Petaled Rose by Stein Saltz. And I was quite young when I read it, and I had this huge Kundalini experience. I didn't know it was called that then. And one of Dave's uncles became quite religious, and I saw the book on his table, and I said, "Oh, I love that book." And he looked at me and said, "You understand that?" And I said, "Yes." And he goes, "Really?" So I have this kind of relationship with this stuff that I just
Mm-hmm.
opens me up, or I have some kind of in there.
Mm-hmm.
And the fiction, I know that sometimes the stories weren't that friendly to women, but in high school there was a writer who created a breakthrough in language, and to me, words are notes, they're vibrations. So when I read this, it's Hemingway. When I read Hemingway, Ernest Hemingway, um,
Yeah.
my teacher, I so understood because he really had a breakthrough in how he used language. And so when I read it, I became very, very elevated, so that my teacher said, for the whole year of advanced placement English, he put me in advanced place. All I did was read Hemingway and write and learn to write and practice writing and understand his style. And it was,
Mm.
so he did get the Nobel Prize for Literature. And it's just the way he uses language, really, not a lot of adjectives. It's just very direct and very deep and
Mm-hmm.
very honest. A lot of pain, a lot of loss, a lot of grief, and a lot of joy. But
Mm-hmm.
and to be in high school and be reading about sexuality and loss and grief and war, a lot of it is about war because he was a war correspondent. And to be reading about war and then having the Vietnam War then, so it has a deep effect on me. And then of course there's lots of, those are just two. And then I have a lot that I wrote down. Those are two ones. And I wrote down a few and I went like, oh my goodness. So other arts, music, I wanted to say for
Can I
music.
just interrupt you for a second? I'm gonna pause. I have to let her go. She's so restless here.
Oh, it's
I'm
okay.
just gonna let her go in another room. Okay, I'll feel better because she was just pacing here.
And then the other one was what I wanted to say was in terms of spiritual texts, is really reading the Siddhi Guru Granth and learning from the Old Testament and from the prayer books in Hebrew to the Siddhi Guru Granth and understanding what they were trying to get across, was a big journey for me, because it's really fire and brimstone, and how do you deal with that fanaticism? And it really, I was able to open my heart and really get through all of that nonsense to the heart of it. And so that's pretty interesting, because there's so much misogynistic approach to women, and there's so many things in there to get by that the poetry and I'm really glad I was able to get by it and understand really what the intentions were of those languages and those poems.
The Siddhi Guru Granth is magic.
Oh, wow. Guru Nanak.
Yeah, him and so many other writers and gurus, and it has that quality that just goes beyond understanding.
If you let yourself, one of the things I suggest to people, if you're going to study yoga, is the Book of Forgiving by Bishop Desmond Tutu. It's number one, because if you can let go of what I was lucky, I had a great religious upbringing, but so many people did not, and religion did not uplift them. If they could forgive that and forgive the people that didn't understand it and understand that it was never meant in this way, they could maybe access then the power of what some of these wisdom traditions are trying to say. I think the Book of Forgiving would be a number one text for me. For everybody.
I heard you recommend it a lot.
I do, and people, they can't even get through the first chapter. It's so difficult.
Wow.
So if you've never read that one,
it's definitely on my list.
Bishop Desmond Tutu is an inspiration to me. I've read all of his books. He's able to be completely in compassion and be absolutely honest about social injustice. And that's very difficult. To confront people on social injustice while being absolutely compassionate. So I respect him tremendously. May he rest in peace. And if you start with the Book of Forgiving, written by him and his daughter, the poem right in the front of the book about his daughter, when you're not quite ready to forgive yet, just keep reading. It's powerful stuff. It's a skill I've learned, and it's a skill to forgive. Mandala, it's a skill. And once you learn it, you will know it. I highly, highly suggest this for anybody on any path of self-knowledge and healing.
In what ways do you feel like people need to learn forgiving?
So they don't care. It's like, so you don't keep drinking the poison of something that is over. You keep poisoning yourself.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the more you hold it within yourself. Yeah.
It's about forgiving yourself and others. And the word forgiveness may be, in yoga they say, let it go. But what is letting it go but forgiving? It's a tough word, and it's not a good sell for workshops and such. And yet it's one of the most important things I learned in my life. And to be able to truly live under that shower of forgiveness.
Yeah. Does he have any specific advice in that book?
Oh yeah, it's an 8-step program.
Oh, 8-step program.
Yeah, there's 8 steps you do, and the first chapter is wow. And I joined it when I was still living in Boston, and he just came out and he put his forgiveness challenge internationally, and tens of thousands of people signed up, and I signed up with all those people at the very beginning. This is 20 years ago.
Mhm.
And it was a wonderful, very difficult. His stories are very difficult. If you don't know Bishop Desmond Tutu, he was one of the ones who was on the team that handled the reconciliation of apartheid.
Mhm.
So that's very deep. He has a, if anybody can teach about it, it's him. And I really highly, that book is very high up for
Mhm.
me. I have other ones. I can give you a whole list.
Oh yeah. Sure, let's if you have them ready, let's hear
Yeah.
it.
Um, the Life of Milarepa.
Oh yes, that's
The
another one. I
Life
heard
of
Osho
Milarepa.
actually recommend it.
And the translation I have is by Lab Sang Lalungpa, and I can send it to you. And
Yeah.
if you're a student on the path, it's wonderful to read because he gives his account, this great Tibetan saint, of his transformation on the path, and
Mhm.
it's very powerful. Highly
Mhm.
recommend the Life of Milarepa.
Mhm.
Um, and anything I really like. I had a journal workshop by Ira Progoff. He was a depth psychologist who was around the times of Jung, Carl Jung, and he has programs called the Journal Workshop. Highly recommended for seekers and writers. His name is Ira
Mhm.
Progoff.
Rogoff. Okay.
And then, of course, I'm a big fan of poetry, but that's another thing. And music, Bach and the Goldberg variations, very high, and Lenny Tristano and Chick Corea, that kind of jazz
Mhm.
that I
Mm.
like very much, improvisational jazz.
Mhm. Yeah.
Not free jazz, but improvisational jazz.
Improvisational jazz. Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. Yeah. So I hope we filled everybody's minds with all kinds of great ideas and books and music and relaxation. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you would like to share?
When you asked me to do the interview, I wanted to tell people to be patient with their practice, to try to let go of any guilt, and be an explorer like a curious child, like
Mhm.
you're about 7 years old and want to see what's over the hill.
Yeah.
You're like, wow, I just want to go see what's on the other side of that. So I want
Yeah.
to go into that garden and smell the roses. And um, if you like music and you like literature, or you like, use that, like read it or listen to it before your practice or as part of your practice to inspire you,
Mhm.
and know that you can pave your own path. And
There.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I love it. Thank you. I think I think we all I found it inspiring. So thank you so much. And your body is truly a wonderful place to start exploring
absolutely.
on
And
your mind.
as
There's nothing boring once you go deeply within.
no, and I remember I was talking about metaphors for the body, and there was a teenager in the room, and we were doing yoga, and I said, well, what is your body to you? And she goes, well, my body's an experiment. And I loved it. And I said, oh, how beautiful. And that moment of all of us being together it's just, the study of yoga brings moment after moment of wisdom and teaching to you if you listen to yourself and each other.
Mhm.
Yeah, talk about your practice. Don't think that the practice exists in a vacuum. It is you having it, but talk to people, you know, talk to your teachers,
Yeah.
talk to friends who you're practicing with, um, and be patient. be patient. It's worth it. It's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
I think Hari Kaur can tell you, and I can tell you that I don't regret one moment of practicing yoga or teaching yoga. Not one. It was all fantastic.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Satnam.
Now,
So yeah, once again, people can find Hari Kaur on harinyc.com. She's teaching. She has women's workshop, full moons workshops, teacher trainings, of course. One of the best teacher trainings that we know of. So if you want to become a teacher, or you're just curious about what it is, Kundalini yoga, and want to know more, and also what the teacher training does, it really helps you start the personal practice.
that's it.
That was I didn't know there was a personal practice even before. I practiced yoga before. I didn't know that is something you can do on your own. So that helped to start it and taught me to do that. So thank you. And if anybody is interested, they can do that with you. Online or in person? Are you doing anything? Yeah.
Yeah, in person for sure, and online I'm there. I've even done interesting things, Hari Kaur.
Yeah.
I'm doing one-on-one teacher training.
Wow.
Yeah. So people study with me for a few years and we work it out, and it's quite nice.
Yeah. So yeah.
So for some people who like are new moms or something, and they just want to study at a different kind of pace, and it's time to make things work for all of us. It's time to make things work and open our minds to thinking outside the box and being able to help each other out.
Yeah, and let the wisdom flow out of the box.
That's right.
Thank you so much for listening. If you like this podcast, please consider leaving a review. That would mean a lot. You can also join our Patreon for daily sadhana, for weekly messages, weekly meditations, or a book club. We have a very interesting book club. We read Bhagavad Gita, Tao Te Ching, and I have a few more surprises coming up, as well as few more exciting guests. Talk to you next time. Bye.